So have you ever wondered who decided what being normal is? Because it's something I've given so much thought to, especially recently. So I'm Nikki Butler, also known as the Autistic Joyologist, and I was diagnosed autistic and ADHD in my mid-40s. I've always known that I was different and struggled to fit in, and I didn't do things the same way that other people did. So for as long as I can remember, I'd been called quirky or off the wall, and quite often, even through school, the feedback had been lazy, needs to try harder, easily distracted. And I grew up thinking that I was stupid, a bit useless, and really frustrated as to why I just didn't seem to do things the way as everyone else. And having a diagnosis of autism and ADHD has been really helpful in that I can replace those damaging labels, a stupid, lazy, useless, with something that helps me understand that it's the way that my brain processes and experiences things. Like, it's just a different processing system. But actually, it's really got me thinking about who on earth decided what's normal anyway, because neurodiversity is a fundamental part of the human species. So diversity is key to any species for our development, our evolution, and our survival. And just because there wasn't the labels of autism and ADHD and other neurodivergencies many years ago doesn't mean that that didn't exist. We would still have had people that had different operating systems, different ways of their brains processing information, different ways of experiencing life. But somewhere along the line, my opinion on this is that somebody decided what was normal. And then the societal structures have been built around that. And that includes school systems, many working environments, the structures that we have on a day-to-day basis. And they were all geared for this version of normal. And then as society has moved on so quickly, like we have evolved very quickly, particularly in terms of the way we live on a day-to-day basis. And then it's become more difficult for those of us that are neurodivergent. So in terms of how we process things or experiencing things in our lives, we diverge from what's considered normal. So it's become harder for us to exist and cope on a day-to-day basis, or go through the schooling system or work environments, because the societal structures are in place for a neurotypical person and haven't taken into account that there are other ways of experiencing things, and other people's brains work differently. So what's happened, and this is the bit that's actually really quite upsetting, I feel, is because our brains work differently, we have been labelled with disorders and dysfunctions. And I have a real problem with that. And I have to say that I absolutely get that this is a spectrum. If we're talking about autism and ADHD, it's a spectrum, and there are absolutely people where this has a fundamental effect on their lives and is a disability. But there are many of us that have achieved certain levels of success, whatever that might look like or feel like for you, and have managed to get by, but with so much extra effort and consequences on our well-being. And it's been exhausting and overwhelming and really had some quite serious consequences for many of us. And that comes from the fact that we just don't have the structures in place to support us. And I just keep thinking, who decided what was normal? And then decided that if we don't tick those boxes, we're disordered or dysfunctional in some way. And then that messaging that even starts from school, and something that's like really shocking here is the research shows that for ADHD children, they have typically received over 20,000 additional pieces of negative feedback by the time they are, some research shows 10 years old, others shows 12 years old. And that by the ages of 7 or 8, already develop the belief that they are less smart than the other children or not good enough at the ages of 7 and 8. And I can certainly think back to experiences that I had at school, and the entire theme from that young age onwards of the things I didn't do well, easily distracted, couldn't focus and concentrate. I was a dolly daydreamer. I could do things well if I really wanted to, and a whole myriad of feedback along those lines. So I collected the evidence that supported this constant feedback of you're not good enough, like you are not capable, you're useless, you're lazy, you're stupid, and grew up with the belief that I needed to try harder, do better, be better. And having a diagnosis was like a switch going for self-compassion and self-understanding. And the more that I have got to deeply understand and know myself over the last few years and appreciate all of the strengths and skills that I have with a neurodivergent brain, the frustration is growing ever more, because it is about being different and not less. And whilst there are things that many neurotypicals may be able to do very well and I can't, there are things that I can do extremely well that perhaps a neurotypical person might not do so well at. And it's wrong that the messaging, in my opinion, it's wrong that the messaging is going out there that if you don't do things in the way that's considered normal, there's something wrong with you. And that's so damaging and so limiting. Diversity is essential to our growth and evolution, and we certainly need it for innovation and change, whether that's in like a business context or working at organisations or how we go about our life on a day-to-day basis. And I really want those beliefs and that message and that understanding to change, because my heart breaks at the thought of children going through the schooling system that is set up for neurotypicals, where the expectation is that they will work in a certain way and achieve certain grades and acquire certain skills, with no true understanding of how difficult that is for that child, no real ability to help them nurture their skill sets or learn in a way that works for them. And those children run the risk of growing up and repeating the experiences that I and many other adults that had late diagnosis have had these experiences, and how damaging that is to confidence and well-being, and how limiting it can be. You know, I was in a corporate environment for a long time, and on reflection, it's an organisation that celebrated sameness. You know, things were done a certain way, and I used to put suggestions forward or come up with ideas for things, and I was told, you know, we don't want any of your wacky off-the-wall ideas. Like, we don't do things like that here. You know, really shut down and suppressed and ridiculed in some cases because I was too off the wall, too outside the box. And actually, the reality is now that as a, you know, I'm well over a decade of being an entrepreneur, that way of thinking and processing and the ideas I have, those are the very keys to success and change. And that's why I often talk about the fact that our skills are all about context and environment. You know, the things that we're often shamed for or told we're not good at are actually the very strengths that we have in a different environment. I'm processing and struggling and thinking about what do we do about this, because it's something that's so ingrained in society that, you know, we have belief systems and stereotypes and stigmas attached to what being neurodivergent is. But where did the idea of normal come from? This is my normal, the way my brain works as a autistic ADHDer, and more recently the realisation that I'm also dyslexic. That is my normal. There are many others out there that I've spoken with who are incredible, like the most incredibly kind, compassionate, empathetic people that I've met, and you know, they always strive to do their best in the environments and situations that they're in. I don't think you will ever find a neurodivergent person that isn't trying their best, and we shouldn't have to make so much more of an effort. It shouldn't be such a drain on our energy levels to try and exist in a society that isn't designed for us. And I really want to do something positive about this. I really want to make sure that our young neurodivergent children are not growing up believing that they are disordered or dysfunctional, but they can appreciate their differences and celebrate their differences, and that the societal structures we have in place start to evolve to appreciate that diversity is part of the human existence, and that it's the support structures and environments that need to change, not us. I would really love to hear your thoughts on this. This is something I'm replaying in my mind almost on a daily basis at the moment. I'm just coming to the end of my NLP, so Neuro-Linguistic Programming, Master Practitioner Programme, and I chose to train in quite a unique way. I've trained with Sue Knight, who is phenomenal, but something it's really helped me understand is that the negative feedback and messages I got as a young child growing up undiagnosed very much formulated my beliefs about myself, about the world, about the environment that I was in. And then since my diagnosis, I've worked really hard to remove some of those limiting beliefs and to celebrate my differences and to create a different path. And I have managed to make some huge transformations in my life. And the reason I chose to study NLP, so I did my NLP business practitioners course a few months ago, the reason I chose to do that is I was fed up with working with coaches and working with tools and systems that didn't work for me, that I felt so much it was still about trying to make my brain work in a normal, neurotypical way. And that just doesn't sit well with me. Like, I don't want to try and force my brain to work in a way that it either truly can't or that requires so much effort to make things happen that it causes overwhelm and burnout and misery. And so going on to do the NLP Master Practitioner has been mind-blowing to understand the ability to reprogram those limiting beliefs, to find different ways of choosing thought patterns or modelling excellence, so I can find my own way of feeling calm, balanced, achieving all the things that I want to achieve, and letting go of that expectation that I'm supposed to work 9 to 5. I'm supposed to live to a certain, perception of what success looks like or is. And I've been able to have my own narrative and my own toolkit and my own skills around that. And it just has really highlighted to me how fundamentally broken I feel society is when it comes to understanding neurodiversity, which includes every single one of us in the human species, how important it is to appreciate, understand and support all of us, not just people that come under this banner of normal, and where we need to have fairness and a sense of calm and balance and acceptance for everybody. I would really, really love to hear your thoughts, your experiences on this topic. It's something that I'm going to be giving a lot more thought to, but let me know what you think. You can pop your comments below, reach out on socials, and you can always email me directly, hello@autisticjoyologist.co.uk. I hope you have a great day.